Okay, good morning, class. I've got here a worksheet that I found online. I went ahead and put a link to that worksheet in the description, so it might be a good idea for you to stop the video right now, click on that link, take a look at those problems, and just see how many of them you can do. They're not long, some of them are a little bit difficult. They, of course, go from easy to tough. Um, Okay, so here's problem number one. Name the arc made by the given angle. Now, it's not asking us to find the arc. It's not asking us to find its measure. It just wants us to give it a name. Okay, so we've got this angle FQE that it mentions. That is this angle right here, FQE, right? So it's asking about specifically this arc right here. Remember that we always assume that we are working with the minor arc. That is a vocabulary word from last time. We always assume that we're working with the minor arc unless we are told that we are working with the major arc in some way. We always default to the shorter of the two possible paths. So I would call this arc FE. Because we're going from point F to point E. You could call it arc EF. That would also be correct. Both of those are the same. They're both fine. Number two, we've got angle 1. Okay, so it's giving us angle 1, which is this angle right here. And again, we have two choices for the arc. We could do the small minor arc between I and H, or we could do the big major arc that goes through J. But we always default to the minor arc. So I'm going to call this arc high. But again, it could also be called arc IH. That's also correct. Number 3, name the central angle of the given arc. So we've got arc ML. Arc ML, again, we always default to the short minor arc. Well, that looks like angle 1 to me. Like if we gave this center a name, if we called the center C or something like that, then we could call it something else. But it's already labeled angle 1, so let's just leave it at that. Number 4, arc ML. Arc ML is the shortest path around the circle from M to L, so there we go. And it's asking us, what is the angle called? Well, I could call that angle a couple of different things. I'm going to call it angle LQM. But you could also call it angle MQL. Right? When you write down an angle, you are writing it down essentially in the order of the points. So like if I start from L, it's LQM. If I start from point M, it's MQL. Doesn't matter which one you do, but it is good to stay consistent as you're going through a problem. All right, that's 1 through 4. I'll give you a moment to take a glance at those. Feel free to pause and write things down if you need to. If an angle is given, name the arc that it makes. Okay, that makes sense. If an arc is given, then name its central angle. So we still aren't solving for anything yet. We're still just working with names, okay? Number 5. We're looking at arc RS. All right, arc RS is the shorter arc between R and S. So I start at R, I end at S. So I'm looking for that angle right there. Well, I'm going to call that angle SQR. Because if I start at S, Q, R. Okay? Number 6. Number 6, it says to find the major arc for angle 1. Okay, so where's angle 1? This looks like angle 1 to me. So it wants the major arc. Now, major arc, that's one of those vocabulary words. It means an arc that is larger than half the circle. So in this case, it means instead of going directly from A to B, we are going to take the long way around and highlight the major arc. And I can't just call this, I'm going to put it in red because this is wrong. I can't just call this arc BA, for example. That's a sad face. Because if I just call it arc BA, that's actually going around the short way, right? We always assume that it's the shortest possible path. So instead, we are going to call that arc BCA to make it clear that we are going through point C. Like you got to go detour through point C before you're allowed to go to point A. All right, moving on. Number 7. Ooh, this is a complicated one. Angle KQL. All right, let's highlight that. I'm going to start at K, and I'm going to highlight angle KQL. So again, we have 2 choices for arc, but it doesn't tell us which one. So we're going to assume it's the minor arc. So I'm going to call that arc KL. Moving on. We'll do 3 more of these this video, and then I'll save the rest for another video tomorrow. Number 8. We're looking at arc SVT. So I'm starting at S, and I have to go through V to get to T. So that looks like it's going to be this angle right there, SQT. Find the measure of the arc. Okay, finally, we're actually looking at numbers now. Find the measure of the arc or the central angle indicated. Assume that lines which appear to be diameters are actually diameters. The only diameter that I see is this one right here. So we're going to assume, that's pretty terrible. We're going to assume that that is in fact a diameter, which makes it a straight line, which I think is going to be important. Or maybe not, I don't know. Number 9. We want to know how much that angle question mark is right there. Well, that is a central angle, remember, one of our vocabulary words. And what we know about central angles is that the measure of the central angle is the same as the measure of the arc it subtends. Remember that word subtends? It just means the arc that it makes by intersecting with the circle. I could say the arc that it makes by intersecting with the circle, but subtends is only 2 syllables. And again, mathematicians, we're lazy, so we make up words instead of explaining. So, long story short, this angle is also 120 degrees. And this angle up here is 155 degrees. Here's a challenge question. What's this angle? Take a minute. It's not on the worksheet, but take a second. What's that angle? Now, we haven't quite talked about this specifically, but if you've been paying attention and synthesizing everything up to this point, you might be able to see that this whole circle altogether, if you take all of those angles and put them together, they make a whole circle, which is 360 degrees. So you could say 360 minus 155 minus 120, and that gets you, let's see, that's the same thing as saying 360 minus 175. 60 minus 75, you're going to loop back around, so you get to 85, 185. Well, this one's super easy now that we did the other one. In fact, let's find everything. We'll make it quick. So the question mark is the measure of this angle, or of this arc here. That's going to be 123 degrees. It's the same as the central angle. This angle here is 180 degrees, right? It's a flat line. We know that it's a diameter, so it's 180 degrees, which makes this arc here also 180 degrees. It is a semicircle. It's neither a major arc nor a minor arc. And finally, if we take away from 360, let's see, 360 minus 180 is 180, minus 100 is 80, minus 20 is 60, minus 3 is 57 degrees. Now, this is going to get more complicated once we start talking about arc length, right? 57 degrees is 57 degrees, whether you're talking about a circle that's this big or whether you're talking about a circle that's the size of a galaxy, right? That angle measure will always be the same, but the size of the circle will determine how far you actually go around the circle. So that's going to get more complicated, but this is really all there is to angle measures. Now, next time we're going to do a few more examples. Things are going to get a little bit more complicated, but we'll get through it together, I promise. All right? See you tomorrow.